Shut up and sit down.
So after months of anticipation and much more recent controversy, The Joker finally released 2 days ago in Croatia, and I saw it last night around the 10 p.m. screening. If you recall one of my earlier videos, I talked about how I was very much excited for The Joker because it looked like it was going to be the kind of comic book movie that would appeal to me. As someone who has gotten tremendously bored of the $200 million action fests that are just regurgitating the same crap over and over and over again, Joker being a $50 million film with a guy like Joaquin Phoenix involved, with the ability to be a standalone feature and to take much more risks than a cinematic universe film could, all appealed to me. And it also helped that at least the first couple trailers looked to be very interesting. It looked like it was going to be an actual movie with actual cinematography, and not just an NBC episode that happens to have $200 million attached to it. But as the film was getting closer and closer to the release, and I read the leaked script, my anticipation for the film waned considerably. From what I could see from the leaked script, and even from some of the stuff that was corroborated of the leaked script by the trailers, it looked like it was just going to be kind of a throwaway plot with big production values attached to it, and an actor who is way too good to be doing a movie with this average of a script, which is ultimately my summary of thoughts on The Joker. It's a throwaway plot, a throwaway story that just happens to have some of the best people working on it that I've seen work on a comic book film in a really long time. What I mean by that is that while the film tries to be both a character study and a biting piece of social commentary on modern day world, the movie is ultimately not really about anything and has nothing really interesting to say about its own protagonist or the biting social commentary. I mean, for God's sake, Arthur Fleck, the crazy person with mental problems in this film, never really even gets a proper diagnosis of what his mental problems even are. They just say he takes 7 kinds of drugs, and that helps him get through the day. And we see through some of his nervous tics and stuff what his diagnosis kind of is, but that's it. That's the extent of the mental health commentary. Arthur has some weird tics, he sometimes hallucinates things, and funding for poor people / mentally ill people gets slashed by the city who doesn't give a shit about them. That really is the extent of the social commentary on mental problems. And the other piece of commentary about the societal divide between the rich and the poor is just as a big load of nothing as Arthur Fleck's character study is. All they say is that, hey, rich people can be assholes and sometimes the poor people will rise up to beat them up. That's really all there is to it. And honestly, these elements would not bother me if the movie wasn't so up its own ass about it. For example, another film with a very throwaway plot is the first John Wick movie. Arguably, all of the ones have one, but I'm going to focus just on the first John Wick film. John Wick knows that its story is cookie-cutter bullshit, but it doesn't focus on it. It only uses the narrative as a framing device for the character interactions, for the great directing, for the action sequences. It knows what its strengths are, and it doesn't worry about trying to use its throwaway plot to give some kind of biting commentary on the world of 2014 or some shit. The Joker film, on the other hand, absolutely does. It has an average as can be throwaway plot, and then it pretends it's the next Dark Knight. If the movie just stopped pretending that it was more important than it already was, I would have honestly had a lot more fun with it. And in fact, ironically, coming from me of all people, the film had the most energy in the last act where Arthur Fleck becomes the Joker, because I really like their take on the Joker. It's the classic one where he's someone who's really bad at telling jokes, he hates being laughed at, he lashes out at people who laugh at him, but what's an interesting take on the Arthur Fleck version is that even after he becomes the Joker, he's still kind of a loser. Lots of big moments where you expect the Joker to just reign supreme are interrupted, or he fucks it up somehow, or somebody else fucks it up for him, and so even after becoming this empowered version of himself, quote unquote, this version of the Joker is still kind of a fuck-up loser who sucks. And I think that's a cool little interesting twist. And honestly, Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker is just having so much fun. He has so much charisma and personality as the Joker. I would honestly like to see him fight write a version of Batman. As weird as it sounds for me to ask this apparently standalone movie to do a more standard capered sequel, that honestly seems a lot better of an alternative to me after they kind of failed to be the biting social commentary film here. But a lot of credit has to be given to Joaquin Phoenix, as I've already stated. The man acts the shit out of this entire film, not just as the Joker, but as Arthur Fleck. He does the impossible. He draws water from a fucking rock, the rock being the script, because they legitimately give him nothing at all to do in the story, but he is so demonstrably awesome at it, it's actually worth seeing this movie at least once to see how good of an actor you have to be to make something so good out of fucking nothing. And the soundtrack for the film is also quite good. I'm never gonna listen to it outside of the movie, but in the film itself, it's a really strong piece, and the movie's not afraid to emphasize the score to help add tension or even comedy to the various scenes. Another thing that I like about this movie is kind of the dark comedy. When this movie's trying to be funny, it's legitimately really funny in a dark way. In fact, I think Joaquin Phoenix's Joker might be the funniest Joker we've had in a long time, which is actually praiseworthy. But on the flip side, I don't know why this film is rated R, because besides there being a few more F-bombs than you would be allowed in a PG-13 movie, and there being a little more blood when someone gets shot, there really isn't any kind of hard R content in this film. You easily could have edited some of the stuff down, and you could have released this film as a PG-13 piece, but I guess then you wouldn't have the marketing buzz of the R-rated Joker film. I guess it just wouldn't be as art house and Oscar baity enough, and yes, this movie is absolutely Oscar bait. I would not be surprised if Joaquin Phoenix gets pushed hard by Warner Brothers to get an Oscar for this, and I honestly could see him getting at least a nomination for it. But yeah, those are my ultimate thoughts on the Joker. It's an average as can be script with presentation and acting that is way too good for the story it's trying to tell, and that's really all there is to it.